How's it going, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. So, you know what the number one thing that is overlooked in the prepper community? Well, I'm about to discuss that. And I can tell you for a fact, it's not food or pyrotechnics, it's not comms, it's not specialty gear like helmets and chest rigs or medical supplies or night vision. It's none of that. The most overlooked thing that you probably don't think about is educational hard copy material. And before you click off, I'm going to give you some recommendations that I have used over the years that has helped me a lot in establishing communities and preparing my family for, catastrophic situations and stuff like that. So I'm going to reference some material here, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So, first thing, mainly is hard copy books. To actually have a physical copy. I'm not talking about just like, oh, I have that book on my cell phone, it's electronic. We all know electronics fail. We all know when we need them the most, they can fail. Granted, these can get wet, but you can actually have a physical copy and do things to protect books in case something would happen. But having a hard copy you can pick up and go with you is extremely important. The first book that I specifically recommend is the Professional Citizen Project. This is a newer book that I just recently got a hold of in the last 3 or 4 months, and I am extremely surprised of the amount of detail in this book. By the way, I do not get any kickbacks, so you can buy any of these things that I'm about to bring up, and I don't receive any of them unless you go to Amazon and use some of the Amazon links, then I guess I get a few cents. But the companies themselves, I don't get anything from them. So this book is filled with the Minuteman style of mindset, and it talks about kind of bridging the being a citizen and the military together, but it does away with all of the other nonsense that the military has, because the military has a lot of in-depth, field manuals and regulations, and it can be very dry. This book takes out all the stuff that you don't need to know and puts it into stuff that you do need to know. Like, for example, azimuths and terrain features, navigation, weapon systems, moving within a team, gear, plate carriers, plates, all these recommendations from actually skilled warfighters are putting information into this book. So I highly recommend it. That's my number one. Number two, this one is going to be very hard to get a hold of, and it took me a while. And this is a book, Failure of Civility. This is by Mike Grand and Jack Lawson. This book goes in and out of stock very randomly. And I saw this book sell for $50 and $1,000. Yes, I said $1,000. There's one point in time that this book was so hard to get a hold of on Amazon, I would just randomly reference it. I'm like, I wonder how much that book's going for. I'm like, there is no way this book is going for $1,050. I would not pay that for this book, but I would argue probably $200 or $300 range. This is a very, very worthwhile book. I'm talking immense amount of detail of setting up a community. This is probably one of the best manuals of setting up anything when it comes to community. It talks about, perimeter defense, as in, for example, it gives you solar power, how to make defensive. You can break up bottles of glass and put them on top of, fence posts and fences. So if anybody grabs a hold of them, they get cut up by glass. They talk about kill boxes. They talk about, just from history, talk about material of structures, brick, drywall. It is just packed full. And they also give you good material in the back of how to actually start. You can copy this stuff. You can start your own community, do flyers, questionnaires, surveys, how to build people, how to build rosters, how to set up security plans. This, Failure of Civility, is also very highly on the list. I would just mark it and just put it off to the side. If you ever see it for a good price, go ahead and snag it. Highly recommended. Next is Contact. And as you see, some of these books actually have like sticky notes into them because I reference these often. Contact is another kind of a little more dumbed down version of Failure of Civility. It has a lot of good information too. I mean, it's talking about how to do small team tactics, just like, The Professional Citizen and a couple of these other books, stuff like that. This book is really, really in depth. Not as much as I would say Failure of Civility, but it has a lot of good information in it. I highly recommend just taking a read, combing through this. It's giving you information, comms, setups, everything like that. So I recommend Contact. Very good book. Now, another series that is a good one is the Patriot Fireteam series. These books are really good for tactical planning. They actually have one that's the mission planner book of like how to establish missions and how to set them up properly and whatnot, or defensive positions or stuff like that. Then you have like the equipment guide of what you should do. And then also just the manual in general. The first book, which kind of coincides with the Professional Citizen book. This is an older version, and the Professional Citizen book is going to have more. This is just number 1 book of it, and it's going to continue to book 2, 3, 4, and 5, and it's going to keep growing into this massive series. So it's just reasonably starting out. Patriot Fireteam kind of established that and started it, but they didn't really follow through with it. But they do have a lot of good material in here. Mission Planner is really good. So that is in your Minuteman stuff. Now, I still got some other stuff over here I'm going to share with you. But the Minuteman stuff, or, preparing yourself, defensive tactics, defensive mindset, cool. That is a whole section that you should be looking at. But also is self-sustainment. Where do you go to reference material on, water collection, or how to make food, or how to grow food, or how to collect, certain wild edibles and stuff like that to maintain, or how to set up security, or how to use old-fashioned tools? Some of these books, which the Self-sufficiency book is a huge, just massive amount of good information. It talks about, how to start your own garden, like a small portion of it, like if you have a small little acre of land. And then it goes all the way up if you have, like, say, 100 acres of land, and it goes all in between of, what and how to cook, clean, what type of food, how to make your own cheese, milk products, composting. It goes into everything as a self-sustaining. Even there's jams and how to make, syrups and stuff like that. Here is one book that has a good overarching, information on the self-sufficiency mindset. For if you didn't have those, governmental or just normal livelihood amenities like running water, running food, trash, detail, electricity, stuff like that. This is a really good book to have that. Another one is also Back to Basics. This is a really good book of explaining back to the basics of how ancestors did everything. It's kind of hard to show, but different types of recipes, how to build certain stuff, knots, you're talking about, plumb bobs, how to sew, skills, arts and crafts, cheese, dehydrating meals, horses, how to take care of them, pigs, all that kind of stuff. Back to Basics is another book that I highly recommend. Almost getting down to the end here. Old-fashioned country skills. Here's another. His is a big book. This thing's pretty hefty, but I highly recommend this one as well. This one's a little bit lighter. Some of these can be expensive, but this is more of an older generation of those two books. And sometimes it's nice to have the older generation of it. Like it's talking about livestock and breeds of goats and sheep and how to shear them, all the way to, making a canoe. There's just a ton of realistically forgotten information. And if the internet goes out, where are you going to go to get your information? Because unfortunately, the libraries are probably going to be pillaged, and unfortunately, libraries are getting smaller and smaller. So you're going to have to become your own library. Lastly, another really good one is actually Les Streld's Survive. This is actually a pretty good book. Has a lot of, survival-based basics in it, like talking about zones of assessment and just in general how to make decisions under pressure and being scared and nervous and what should you do and analyzing the survival situation, which of course Les Stroud or Survivor Man, as maybe some of you know it, pretty solid expert, and he's one of the premier survival experts that wrote this book, and he was one of the ones that were no joke doing it without a film crew. As some of you didn't know, he was alone out there doing these things, no real safety net or backup. So he learned a lot and put it all into this book. So those are the books that I recommend that you start off with. Now there's a ton of other books out there that I have and I'm just not showing just because we don't have the time to do it. So I know this might have been a boring topic for some, but it's extremely overlooked. People do not often hold material like this anymore. Maybe some of them do. And I got a whole library, and that's great. I'm trying to get the other people that don't do that just yet to get on board with this. Physical. You can even trade. If you would buy, say, 2 of these books, and you would get into a catastrophic situation, whatever it be, like, hey, I got this old-fashioned skills book. What do you have? I'll trade you for it, right? And if you have several copies of these, this will be worth more than gold, silver, and maybe even bullets, which now there's the whole bullet argument. Why don't you just shoot them and take it and blah, blah, blah. We're not going into that. I'm just saying you can trade material. Information, at least in the old days, was highly coveted. Now with the cell phone age, we can just email and text and all that stuff back and forth. It's really taken for granted. So if you guys like this kind of stuff, want to see more, definitely like, subscribe. I'm going to link as many as I can in the description box below. None of the companies know that I'm doing this kind of genre or whatnot. I don't make any money on it unless you go to Amazon, and then I make a few cents just on the reference material. Yeah, other than that, get in there, start reading. Have a great day.